happens when a Las Vegas Reformed Jewish rabbi and a Las Vegas Presbyterian pastor have a conversation as friends? They discover that no matter where you live or what you believe, faith matters. In this episode of Faith Matters, Rabbi Sanford Akselrad from Congregation near Tamid and Reverend Adrian from Green Valley Presbyterian Church talk about this politically charged election season and how to agree to disagree. They talk about protecting your relationships with friends and family with the values of listening, understanding, empathy, and having a kind heart.
Adrian, good to see you.
Hey, it's good to see you. You know, the last time we were together, we were complaining about how hot it is.
And now we're back to the hot topic. You know, it's an interesting thing. We're in an election year. We got the war going on in Israel and Gaza. It just seems whenever, there's so much news that gets played about these topics, which have more than one point of view, and yet people can dig in their heels and feel, no, you got to vote this way. If you don't, then you're an idiot. You got to vote that way. If you don't, then I don't know who you are. The war, I don't know what they're doing. They have every right to do this. And the list goes on and on.
And if you don't agree with me, then we can no longer be friends, or we can no longer talk.
That's the part that in the last few years has changed.
Yes.
Because American families used to have vigorous discourses around the dinner table, right? And you may not be happy, but we knew that's just how it was, and it was acceptable, and you ultimately agree to disagree. So
growing up where I did in my part of the country, the rigorous discourse was, Wolverine versus Buckeyes. That was the rigorous discourse at the table.
Well, that could lead to fistfights when you're talking about sports teams. Okay?
That's right. That's right.
But other than sports teams, here we're talking about people being passionate on their values and not acknowledging that there's a possibility that someone else may have a good heart, but their values are different. You may even think they're misguided, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to write them off. So maybe we need to talk a little bit about some strategies for families and friends who don't always agree to learn to understand each other and maybe walk that fine line.
Because I would dare say every one of our congregational members, every one of our friends, every one of our listeners is dealing with this same issue right now.
Yeah.
We've lost the ability as American citizens to agree to disagree, to actually ask questions such as, Sandy, help me understand how you came to that position. But instead, we want to throw it out there, and my perception is we immediately want to argue.
I think you ask, how did we get to this place?
Yes.
I think there's a lot of reasons, but the one I'm going to zoom in on is really social media, because social media has allowed people to be in a silo that their algorithm reinforces what their point of view is. And
was well said.
then the other thing would be the move of news to the entertainments and profit center. So now the news is no longer like we grew up with, Walter Cronkite, 3, ABC, NBC, CBS. We now have in the evening, not necessarily the news where you share the news and you make up your mind. It's rather people who are talking heads who have a definitive point of view, and everything they say reinforces that point of view. So you're not challenged to think on your own. You're basically sitting there in your silo, hearing someone say things that you are nodding your head to, and that's what you listen to. And the other channels are terrible, and the other people are wrong. So I think
Well,
those
let's
two
say I
factors
may,
kind of contributed to what we're in right now. You agree to that, or?
I agree wholeheartedly. And it's not only that we have these algorithms that determine what we watch or what we see, but also we choose networks that agree with our position. What I notice increasingly is someone will say to me, yes, but where did you? And so they'll name a network. Well, we all know that's not true because it's that network. Well, wait a minute. You know, one of the things I like to do is to watch multiple networks and try to put together a broader picture on the issue. But I find we're not able to do that. So let's imagine that I've been invited by Sandy and Joni to come to your house for Thanksgiving dinner. There's 10 of us sitting around the table, and someone brings up a hot topic, and someone across the table says, I disagree, right?
Yeah, so the first
What do
thing
we
is
do
my
in the
wife
midst
would
of that?
probably say, don't talk religion and politics. Keep
Right,
it light. That's how
right.
my wife would advise me beforehand.
And then she would say, I told you not to bring Pastor Adrian.
So some families are more open to political discourse, and some are shy away from it for that very reason, right?
Mhm.
So really, it's kind of the culture of the family, I would think. Wouldn't you think? I mean, same thing could be at any holiday where people of diverse backgrounds are coming together for some festive activity. So the
And I always marveled when I
hostess
went to
might
other,
want it just to be, let's all just get along for this 2 hours.
right.
But you may have that family member who that's impossible for. Or it kind of slides. Did you hear the news? Can you believe that dot dot dot? Or you can't believe those Democrats, or you can't believe those Republicans, or those Trump.
Right.
You can kind of fill in the blank. And so once it's said that way as a challenge, you are kind of out to the races. So let's back up a bit rather than say a family gathering. Let's just talk about two friends or two family members.
We're sitting in a coffee shop.
Yeah, maybe, or just a phone call because someone in the family has become really entrenched in a political view.
Mhm.
Another segment of the family doesn't. And the solution is to write them off. And there are times perhaps when family members become estranged, and there could be reasons. But on this, I would say, how do we just learn to agree to disagree and not feel we have to correct someone, or see if the person is open to a free exchange of ideas? And if they're not, you have to decide if that relationship, even if it's one-sided, is still worth it to keep that person in your life, and whether you need to just have a talk. I respect, your views, and I'm not on that same page. So can we just keep it to other things, talking about the kids, the ball game, a movie, things that are just a little bit easier to talk about, and sharing an opinion or a thought doesn't necessarily become an attack on one's values. And that would be the first thing I would say.
I remember having a friend of mine is an avowed atheist, and many of our conversations would constantly lead to a criticism of me being a pastor and a criticism of the Christian faith. And there became a point, even though I enjoyed our friendship, I enjoyed talking with him, there came a point where I needed to pull away to say, there's only so many times where we can talk about it, but now you are attacking me at the core of who I am as a person of faith. And when this person could not understand that, I had to say, look, it's one thing to say, I disagree with you, I debate you, but now to mock someone or to minimize someone for a position of faith, I think that raises a whole nother level of issues.
And so how would you suggest people handle it?
I had to say, I enjoy our conversations. I enjoy your friendship, but you have to understand that there's a point in which you've crossed beyond telling me why you disagree to now attacking my faith community and those of us who believe in God. And he wasn't just attacking Christians, it was anyone who believed in God.
Yeah. And he basically thought they were idiots or
Right.
believing in Santa Claus, and it was just made up by
They've
people.
been indoctrinated, right?
Right.
And I think these are tough issues because I think if the friendship is important, we need to be able to have those kinds of conversations, but we also have to be willing in discourse with people we know well and people we don't know well to say, yeah, let's have a healthy debate, let's have a healthy conversation, but at the end of the day, we might need to make an agreement going into it. We will probably never agree, but we may end up being friends.
Yeah, I would also say when people challenge a pastor, right, the rabbi or minister, it's called time and place, right? If they see you at the grocery store and they just are trying to get under your skin,
Right.
or right after services and they want to get under your skin, then I might say, you know what, I'd love to talk about this. Can we either grab a cup of coffee or take an appointment to see me in my study? And then, you give them that undivided attention to actually focus on that issue, and that's fine, which
Right.
is very different than someone just trying to, see you. Oh, no, I don't want to see you. They're just really trying to give you a little zets. And that's another Yiddish word, little pinch to get a rise out of you and then go on their merry way, which is a little unfair. So if they really do want to have a concentrated, real discussion with me, I think that's fair game. I think that's wonderful. That's why we're rabbis and ministers, to try to share the word of what we believe and go back and forth. I think that's a great thing. Just not on a drive-by conversation. That's where I disagree.
There's a verse that I had to look up because I know the verse, but I didn't remember where it was. But it says, a soft answer turns away wrath. And I think that's something that we forget today too. It's from Proverbs. And yet that sense of how often do we want to say, I can't believe you said that, or I can't believe you voted that way, or I can't believe you think that way, versus, oh, okay. Tell me more, right? Let's talk about this. Instead of we quickly want to really put the person down. We want to assume a position of hierarchy that we know more than you do. I think that's one of the mistakes that we make today in the public arena, is that we think that conversations where we disagree, that somehow it has to turn into an argument, right?
And then I would also say there's, going back to time and place, let's just say you're passionate. Could be about civil rights, could be about abortion or the right to choose, could be about gun control. I mean, all these things that are kind of hot buttons.
Yeah.
There are vehicles, letters to the editor, demonstrations, calling your representative. There are vehicles to tap into that energy for people who can affect social change, and you can be part of that. But then there are just certain times when it's a family gathering,
Right.
an event, and maybe it's just not the appropriate time and place to do it. So I would say that would be what I would recommend to people, to choose judiciously, that time and place. And understand when family members or friends disagree, you have to evaluate that friendship and see whether that value that you two are disagreeing about is a deal breaker. And if it's a deal breaker, why? does it reflect something in that relationship that you no longer think is worth saving because we're more than just one particular opinion? Or do you think that what they stand for just is so deep that it covers
Yeah.
their behavior and activities in all area of life? Because again, it's different than, you being married to this person, and or being a blood relative versus a friend, and we choose our friends, and so you have to see, is there enough there, and that's worth saving, salvaging,
Yeah.
or maintaining. I think that would be my point of view.
And I think that when we come to that issue of friendship, some friendships are worth fighting for, even when you disagree. Because there has to come a point where you say, you know what, we do disagree on this, but our friendship, our experience, whatever, or even with a relative, it's so important that maybe we just need to say, let's not talk about this. But as you say, if it's an issue that's just absolutely foundational to you, if it's one of those hot button issues for you, it may be a real test. How do you forge?
We forge ahead.
Yeah, how do you forge ahead?
All right, so to wrap this up, 3 pieces of advice. You get to go first.
Listen truly. Even when you're offended, listen. Think through what they're saying. Don't be so quick to speak. And the third is, can you tell me why you say this? And to be able to share from your experience why you disagree. Those are my 3.
Well, they're pretty good 3. So it's the same thing. Listen. And when I say listen, so often people are not really listening. They're looking to respond. The other person's talking. They're trying to formulate what it might be they're going to say. So just have a good listen and then try to understand what it is that gives them cause for concern. And then understand the person, if they are someone who actually wants to listen to your point of view, or merely have you listen to their point of view, and that's as far as they really want to go.
Yeah.
Because if it's one-sided, then it may not be worth it for you. But if it's truly two-sided and you have a give and take, that's healthy. Now, if it's one-sided, then you just have to evaluate to understand that you're going to just never agree on that, and then look for things in life where you do agree. And there's a multitude of things, and they may not be, quote, as important in the scheme of things, politically wise, but they can be important in terms of us getting along as friends and family, where we can be there to support each other in so many other ways that have nothing to do with our politics. When we're down and out and someone comes over and brings us the chicken soup, or offers to help us in so many ways, we're not asking whether they're a Democrat or a Republican. We're just grateful that this person has a kind heart. And so that's also, do they have a kind heart? And if they have a kind heart, and they're capable of empathy and sympathy and doing that random act of kindness, I think that gives them a lot of merit to continue to be in my life. So those would be my general words of wisdom.
Those are good words. And sometimes we find that the end goal is the same, but we're going about it in a very different way.
Yes. So there you have it, folks. Talk amongst yourselves and see
And listen.
what your list might be, and think about those relationships that are tender between your friends and family, and see if if you think they're worth saving, see how you might be able to steer the ship towards more moderate waters so that they can enjoy each other in life. And because friendships, family, they're precious and they're gifts. And we hope that this conversation that we had helps bring a sense of centeredness and perspective to the relationships that you have. So for now, we thank you for listening, and we appreciate your support of this podcast in which we talk about matters of faith, because for both of us, and hopefully for all our listeners, faith matters. It's a source of strength for all of us. Thank you.
Shalom.
Faith Matters features Rabbi Sanford Akselrad from Congregation Year Tamid and Reverend Adrian Dahl from Green Valley Presbyterian Church, and is produced by Leslie Snadowsky. We hope you join us again for our next podcast episode of Faith Matters.